Good morning. Sunday, last Sunday in June. I think it's the 29th. Hard to tell. I'm just starting my day of door dashing. And I usually get into something stupid to talk about. Why should today be different? Well, it's going to be different. Today, I'm going to talk about gambling. It seems to be a popular subject on this channel, almost as popular as pretty women's feet in high heels. They're running, shall we say, toe-to-toe? Why not? Bad humor. Anyway, I have been a risk taker all my life. Whether it was racing cars, racing motorcycles, gambling with the money that were the receipts of the... Never mind, we won't go there. At any rate, I ended up had some major wins and a lot of minor losses. So I was never rich enough to have any major losses. That being said, and I race. I did race harness horses and thoroughbreds because even back in the day, harness horses raced every week. Thoroughbreds raced once a month. Now they don't even race that a lot of times. And if you're a gambler, the amount of races that you are privy to inside information on increases your chances of lining your pockets with money. One thing that had been a constant all my life up until I started gambling when I was 17 at Fort Erie Racetrack across the bridge and the U.S. border from Canada. Back then you didn't have, from Buffalo, New York, born in Rochester area and raised in Buffalo. And back then you didn't need a passport to go to Canada. A friendly wave at the border, telling them you were heading up to the racetrack to gamble, or up to Toronto for some fun, was all it took. Even if you had long hair and dressed hippie-ish, which I did, and had a lot of friends that looked like that. But at any rate, so from 17 until I moved to California, I gambled a lot. Back to California, I cut a deal with my sister where I would behave. Let's just leave it at that. And back when I started out, and for years and years and years, it was a well-known fact that the favorite in a race would win 30% of the time, 33% of the time, 32% of the time, whatever that number was. It was always right in that 30 to 35 max range. The favorite, all kinds of racing, thoroughbreds, standardbreds, trotters, pacers. The only thing that was a little bit different was like quarter horses, because the only people that bet on quarter horses were people with quarter horses, and they were privy to inside information. Well, over the last 50 years, maybe 55 years, the number of favorites, especially in harness racing, crossing the finish line first, has gone to, let's break it down a little bit. Let's talk about a half-mile track. Okay, a half-mile track gives an inordinate advantage to the inside post positions because you're going around a total of 4 turns, and the first turn is right at the start of the race. So unless you have an extremely fast horse from the outside, you tuck in and give up 6, 7, 8 lengths advantage to the horses on the inside that have gate speed. And let me explain to you what happens when a horse accelerates quickly from the gate. They fire what's called fast twitch muscles to gain that little burst that gets them ahead of the other horses. The problem with firing fast twitch muscles is it builds lactic acid. And lactic acid inhibits the use of fast twitch muscles as the race progresses. Since nearly every race, standardbreds in the U.S., is a mile race, the last quarter mile, sometimes even more of that, the horses that had to use that burst to get on top pay the price. And so as a result, those horses back up and are very vulnerable to being passed around the final turn and in the home stretch. Half-mile tracks, Northfield Park in Cleveland, Buffalo and Batavia Raceway in Buffalo, New York area, my home area. Saratoga Harness, Monticello. What am I leaving out? Plain Ridge, I think. The tracks in Delaware. Let's see, what else? I don't think there's any other tracks that run a half-mile setup. Oh, some of the tracks in Canada, some of the minor tracks. So, if you like to bet favorites, you like to go with the money, and you know the money is if more than half the favorites win on those tracks, it's a good idea. Now, we're in the 2-year-old season, where the babies are coming out, and the babies are coming out in sire stakes. You'll find some of the fields are inordinately short of talented horses. There'll usually be a dominant horse or two in each of the sire stakes races and some of the stallion series that certain states put on now because there's so much money from the casinos. And so getting to bet on the 3-year-olds especially, they really have a track record you can count on. And good post positions, you get them a race or two under their belt before the sire stakes and the stallion series start out, and you're going to get better than 50% winners. You might get 65% winners. You're not going to pay a lot, but you're not going to sit at the trough and lose 10 races in a row. So if you use some sort of progressive betting, which means you bet a race hoping for a certain amount of profitability. If you win, then the next race you bet, you go back and look for that same amount of profitability. If you lose, then the next race you bet, you go for a certain amount of profitability for each of the races, the race you're betting and the race you lost, and you also have to make up for the money you lost in your first bet. Let's go with a simple example. A horse is 2 to 1. You bet, let's say you want to make 20 bucks. So you bet 10 bucks on a 2 to 1 shot. He loses, and now you've got, let's say you have another 2 to 1 shot. Now you got to make 10 bucks, bet 10 bucks for the 2 to 1 shot in that race, and you've already lost 10 10 bucks and missed out on 20, you got to make those up too. If by some situation your odds don't come to where you thought they'd be, then you adjust. So, and if you won your first bet, second bet is easy. You're trying to make 20 bucks again. It's 2 to 1 shot, you bet 10 again. That loses, again, you up your bets to compensate for the money you lost, the money you didn't make, and the money you need to make in the race you're dealing with right now. Pretty simple. You can't shoot for huge money at most tracks. You have to be, say, a blue-collar gambler looking to make 100 a day. That's not unreasonable. Looking to make 150 a day. That's probably not too unreasonable either. But you aren't going to make 1,000 a day, because if you lose 2 races in a row and you've been shooting to make 1,000 that day, you start affecting your own odds. Not a good thing. So, just wanted to point that out. Oh, also, if you're betting pacers, you're less likely to have your favorite or your horse break than you do trotters. So, you might want to be careful if you're betting trotters. I try to exclude them from most bets. I can always sit out a race. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.